Well, let's start with finding out who's here. We'll introduce myself and all of you as far as a group. Raise your hand if you do any type of solar imaging. Okay. All right, so almost half of everybody here. All right. So the type of equipment, raise your hand if you have a Lunt filters, okay. The Coronados, all right, very good. Okay, so Lunts are pretty popular. The Daystars, all right. It's pretty much the Lunt and the Daystars have. All right, very good. So we're gonna look at each one of those type of things. Oh, wedges for white light, yeah. How about white light? White light. All right. Do some white light. I love white light. I like to do a lot of white light.
I got an APM wedge.
Okay, all right, very good. Very good.
I have bother.
So when I was about 14 years old, I had at that point in time decided that I was going to do solar. Of course, I didn't have any filters other than a white light filter, so I would take my little 2.4-inch Tasco and go out and make drawings of the sunspots. This was back in 68, 69. And we had Sunspot Maximum there, and I got pretty good at it. I had some very, very good detailed drawings of sunspots. So that interest kept on. By the time I got into high school, a friend of mine, he and I built an 8-inch reflector, ground and polished our own mirror. So I'm getting a little bit of building experience. So by the time I graduated from high school, I was really interested in all these pictures that you see as far as either eclipse pictures, or by then Del Woods had come out with his filter. Actually, he was a spin-off from Carson Astronomics. And he'd come out with that filter. Well, that was pretty expensive for a young man just graduating high school. So I still wanted to do something. So I saw and remember in Sky and Telescope ATM, they had always a project of the month for you to work on. Well, there was this one year, I don't remember, maybe it was around 68 or so, this fella had made a small spectrohelioscope. It was only about this big. It was a small box, like a little bigger than a shoebox. And I don't know, it's hard for me to recollect back that far, but it seems that, oh yeah, I could see prominences on the sun with this. So I thought, okay, that's going to be pretty cool. So it was just a basic type of design. You had a couple lenses, a mirror, transmission, diffraction gradient in there to produce your spectrum. And then he had a couple razor blades in there on a bar with a cam wheel on it that oscillated them back and forth. And I said, okay, all right, he's got everything in there. And so I built that design. Needless to say, it didn't work. It didn't work. That was, I was able to see a little round disk of the sun, and I saw it in red because I could turn the diffraction grating so that it transmitted the red portion. But as I learned more and more about this stuff, oh my gosh, I needed to see in a particular wavelength, not just the broad wavelength. We need to get this really, really down. So probably another year had gone by, and another fella came out, and you may be familiar with this gentleman. He's in California. Frederick Vio came out with his rotating glass disc design, which I inherently liked that design. Other than the Hale design was a rocker where it pivoted in the middle and these slits oscillated back and forth. Well, that design just made all kinds of vibration, because anytime you have something that's moving, has to come to a stop, reverse direction. You start doing that very quickly, you're going to introduce vibration. Well, I liked the idea of a rotating glass disc you had radial slits cut in a layer of paint. These slits were cut in there, and you just flipped the motor on, and it smoothly rotated. So I like that. I said, that's a good idea. So that was the design that I had first went with, and it actually worked. I saw prominences, I saw flares, I saw filaments on the sun. So I said, okay, this is pretty good. And I had copied that gentleman's design pretty much verbatim. Then I says, okay, bigger is better. So I want to increase my linear dispersion. That's how far the hydrogen alpha line expands, so that now you can narrow your passband and get down deeper into that passband. Okay, that would increase your contrast, make it a lot better. I also wanted to increase the focal lengths of the objective lens. So originally I started out with just a 2.5-inch lens that had a focal length of like a little over 110 inches. Well, in solar astronomy, if you take that focal length divided by 100, that will give you the diameter of the sun. So 110 inches divided by 100 will give you about 1 inch. So my prime focus, I mean, I know we do a lot of star work in here, but at prime focus, my sun was 1 inch in diameter. So that's a pretty good size right there, 1 inch diameter, prime focus. So I said, okay, that's pretty good. So I looked at doubling everything. So I went from a 2.5-inch lens to a 5-inch lens and increased my focal lengths, both in the spectroscope and in the telescope. And you have to really keep things, basically, if you're going to multiply everything by 2, you got to multiply your telescope focal length by 2 and your spectroscope focal length by 2, because these things have to stay in proportion to each other. So I started doing that and everything, and I increased the diameter of the rotating glass disc from 4-inch to 8-inch. And what that got me was a bigger field of view. Just like so many times we get our filters that we use today, and depending what camera you use, you're like, boy, I can't take an FDI, full disc image. You know, I can only get half. Well, that's about what I was getting, was about half. So I thought, well, let me go to an 8-inch disc, and that will make my field of view bigger. So I kept the 1-inch the 1-inch lens that I could use to give me a 1-inch, and then I also increased and had a 5-inch lens to be able to give me a 2-inch. So now I went to 2 inches. So I kept building things bigger and bigger. Well, after I went through that worked pretty good. So I was happy with that. But of course, you know how it is in your solar work and astronomy. You're just never happy. You're always looking for nirvana. So the one year I decided, by now I was working at a steel mill, and I had like 3 weeks off for vacation. My wife and I, Pam, I said, all right, let's go. I want to do a tour of all the major solar observatories in the country. So this here is McMath in Kitt Peak. So we went out there, and this is the observing table down below. That prime image is about 30 inches in diameter. Actually, it's about 36. 36 inches in diameter, prime focus. Now, this was an observatory that a lot of people never even knew existed. This was in San Fernando Valley in California. On the far right, we have a 6-inch patrol telescope that was fitted with hydrogen alpha filters. That was for real quick. As soon as they would find something, they would use that telescope there to be able to find objects that change real quick on the sun. Then they would hone in on this instrument here on the sun with this one. This one was a 16-inch telescope. They recently, it was about 2-3 years ago, decommissioned this entire setup. They no longer In fact, they tore it all down. They tore everything down. I told Pam, I said, let's go there. I said, I'll tear it down for free, as long as I can get it, yeah. But yeah, they decommissioned this one. But this was a nice little gem back in this time, and this was dated, I think, 68? 69, yeah. So this was right around sunspot maximum and stuff. This was a big deal back then. Now, this was Big Bear Observatory. Big Bear has changed a lot. I think I have an upgraded here. But I had gone out to Big Bear a couple of times. When I went out there the first time, it looked like this. They had inside here two 10-inch refractors that they had fitted with filters. And of course, they had a table where they had pickoffs down there where they did different experiments and everything on Big Bear. And at this time, the only way you can get to that was the boat. You have the boat right in the right-hand corner down there. They hadn't built the causeway yet. So the only way out to the observatory, the scientists had to take the boat out every day to observe. Now, this has been the upgrade here. They have since put a 30-inch off-axis primary in here. This is really, really nice now. I visited this since they've done the upgrade. This is really good. And you can see, yeah, they have the causeway in here now, and you can see how low the water was. When we went there, just, I don't know, oh golly, it's probably been, yeah, I was going to say 3 years ago, but it's probably been more like 8 years ago now. I'm sorry?
Where's the door to get in?
It's on the side over here, yeah. Yeah.
Where is that?
This is Big Bear, California. Yeah. This was one of my, I'm sorry?
Mount Wilson also.
Mount Wilson, we'll touch on that. So what I did, what I did, my idea in going out to these different observatories, remember I want to upgrade. So I'd go to these different observatories and study their designs and see what ideas I liked on them. This was one of my favorite. At the time, this was Sac Peak. This was in Sunspot, New Mexico. And this is, at the time, oh my gosh, they just, the technology that they had on this scope, this was 150 feet above the ground, and they had another 250 feet below the ground that this thing extended. The turret was about a 40-inch glass, and it was an alto-azimuth turret up on the top there. This was called the Hilltop Dome. They had another, I think they had a coronagraph in this observatory here. The table on the floor at ground level at the Sac Peak there floated on a big mercury bearing. So in order to adjust for the rotation of the sun, because in this setup, this is not a coelostat setup, this is a helostat setup, and when you have that kind of a mirror operation, the sun will rotate like this. So they needed to de-rotate in order to keep things in a central configuration. They had all their instrumentation, their spectrographs, basically. And they had the entire 40-foot diameter floor floating on a mercury bearing, so as to de-rotate the sun's image. Yeah, this was just one of my favorites. This was about 9,200 feet up on the mountain here. Now, this is where it really all started. This was George Ellery Hales. He brought the components from this observatory from Chicago. This was in the early 1900s. He brought this design from one of his benefactors, Snow, and he named it after the woman. This was the Snow telescope here. This has a coelostat on this end here. Fed with a horizontal telescope setup, 12-inch lens feeding into the spectroscope. This did not work very well. He was plagued. He was plagued with, and that's why you see the siding here. This is canvas. He was plagued with heat that caused the image, because he was shooting it horizontally, to really deform the image. So that was one thing that Hale learned. Now after that, he started going to tower telescopes. That's what Hale learned. So he took that lens out of there and put it in this one here. This is one of the smaller ones. This was the 60-foot tower telescope.
Oh my God, look at him going up.
Yeah, so yeah, here's a fella
Yeah.
climbing up here.
I don't know if I want to see the sun that bad.
Yeah. So this is only 60 foot. Then Hale built a 150-foot tower telescope. Well, and certainly not that one. I wonder if, okay, I'm going to have to go back. See if I can do that.
So in other words, to take solar images, you need to have what, $100 million?
Yeah, that's what I'm finding.
That's what I'm finding out here.
There we go. So yeah, the next one he built was a 150-foot telescope. And the interesting part about that, this is one of this idea I took from there. He only used a 12-inch diameter lens. He had a 12-inch diameter triplet that he had in that 150-foot telescope. And I said, well, gee, I can do that. So later, when I got home and started increasing, this was my observatory at home, where I had just a very small setup. This was one of the first setups we discussed. In fact, you can see here. Okay, here is the rotating glass disc right here, just on a motor. It's very simple. It worked very well. These two little devices here called line shifters, you use that as you would in your filters today for tuning. Okay, if you wanted to move your hydrogen alpha line half an angstrom or so, you would just shift through those line shifters. And here you can see the diffraction grating down at this end. We had a lens here that both columnated the light, and which is what we do today with our filters. I'm going to get all this into filters here. But what I'm getting at is this was how we had to do it 50 years ago. You know, this is what professionals were doing with the spectrohelioscopes, spectroheliographs mostly. George Ellery Hale used. Okay, so we had a micrometer down at this end here that controlled the diffraction grating. All right, now this fella here, this is the fella that really got me started. Launched my career into machining. I had to convince my wife, all right, you see all this metal work? I gotta move from wood to metal so I can maintain my precision. So now I'm not only buying expensive lenses and mirrors, and now I'm buying machinery, which just went on and never ended. But this fella here, this is Walter J. Semera out of Buffalo, New York. He built this setup here, and I visited him several times. Pam and I went up there, talked to him. By the time we went up there, he was in his 70s by the time we met with him. And this was his instrument here. This hand wheel here operated a mirror system down here for focusing. We'll go over some of the things here. Here you had the arm that held the diffraction grating. Up here you had your Anderson prisms and he did two different things that I liked. See, I'm always looking at ideas. Why reinvent the wheel? He did two things. He had a system where he can oscillate two slits back and forth slowly. This is what's for taking pictures. Okay, and this was back in the day where you had film. Oh, I hated film. So we were using film back then, but we would pass the slits back and forth over the image of the sun to make our exposure. But if you can see right above the slits, right there, you can just see the end of a prism. He also had, when he wanted to do visual observations, we would center the slits, and we had 2 prisms above those slits. Turn those prisms on with a motor. Now you were able to do optically, which was transverse the image of the sun and the spectrum across your eye, do it optically via those prisms instead of mechanically over a film plane. So that worked real well. No vibrations. I like that system. So I used that system when I made mine. This was his heliostat system, fed down through down here, and then in below into the basement. All right, so now started me building. All right. So I erect this huge thing on the side of our house. Thank you, Pam.
Your wife loved it.
Yes, she loved that. So up here we have a 12-inch lens that sits up here. We have a mirror here, and then shoots it into the basement, and then I'll show you the scope down there. But then up in the dome, we also had a coelostat. So I made a coelostat, which was another very complex piece of equipment here. This is a coelostat where your mirror lies in the plane of your pole star. Okay, and then in order to compensate for declination, you run on a lead screw right here, all up and down, and shoot it onto your secondary, and then your secondary down the tower. The gearing, this was a really interesting gear mechanism. I won't even get into it, but I saw that in SkyTel too. It was really nice. It had a combination of a slew and a drive with no clutches. There's no clutch on here. The drive mechanism right here was mounted on the slew, a big gear right there driven by that worm. And so as the mirror turned, the whole drive mechanism actually rotated around. So in order to get those mirrors going, I had to run slip rings on there to AC power onto these motors. So that was a challenge there. All right, my road to Nirvana. Bigger's always better. And that's the one thing we're going to talk about when we get into our filters here. So as I spoke, we increased the telescope size, the spectroscope length to increase our linear dispersion. I increased my objective to 12-inch diameter, and it had a focal length of 226 inches. So that would give me at prime focus 2¼ inch. So I had an image of the sun 2¼ inches in diameter at prime focus. So you talk about some resolution. That was really nice. Now, the thing that I did also was I evacuated the tube. I ran a vacuum. I got a very, very strong vacuum pump. Actually, it was a Micron vacuum pump. And I evacuated all the air I could out of that tube. Boy, did that make a difference. Oh my gosh. You wouldn't get any of the heating on the tube. Took away all your motion from your light by doing that. I replaced the rotating glass disc with Anderson prisms. The oscillating slits I used, oh yeah, that was another thing. In the formation of the spectrum. Everybody's seen the spectrum drawn out from the violet to the red end. And you see all the lines, all the spectral lines in there. Hydrogen alpha, calcium. Well, all those lines are actually tilted. They're actually tilted. And that tilt comes from the separation of your entrance slit and your exit slit. So ideally, you would want them very close together, okay? That's to minimize that angle. But then you know your head kind of gets in the way of the sun coming here if they're only this far apart. So you know you have to make them somewhat apart. So one of the things that I did here on my oscillating slits, instead of making just how you would think a couple slits, you know, screwed together so you have two slits, I made the slits so that they were in a cell so that I could actually offset that spectral line tilt, making sure now that I had a more pure. I was 100% in, because if the spectral line is tilted and your slit is vertical, well, the top is going to be a little out, the bottom is going to be a little out. But this way I was able to compensate for that spectral line tilt and really have a much more pure image. All right, this was me many years ago. And this was the instrument that I built. Of course, you could see it was 6 feet tall. Once again, the focusing mirrors ran down here. So the sunlight came in on the back side here, went down through one lens that I had here, back through a set of mirrors here, back up through the same lens, and then into the, well, it hit the diffraction grating, and then out the exit port or the camera. In fact, the camera I had where this was an eyepiece right there. I could either use the eyepiece visually or use the camera when I wanted to do photography.
And you didn't need a filter on that the way that you have it set up?
Right, right. The filter was this whole instrument. This is how much it took. To today we have a little something we can just plug in. This is what you had to go through 50 years ago. Here you can see the rotating glass disc right there. Different step pulleys for different speeds of the oscillating slits. There's a pretty good picture there of the prisms. Here you can see the different, these are on dovetails here. And the lead screws was pretty neat, where the slits got to move in exact same amounts, but in opposite directions. So that was a nice mechanical touch. And what I do today, okay, bigger is still better. Today I run I had that set up in Ohio. Well, I had moved to Arizona and was in Arizona for 6 years. And I loved Arizona, but my wife hated Arizona. So we're in Florida now, but I still love Arizona. Today I have a AP 152, the F8, fitted with a Daystar PE grade 0.5 angstrom filter. And I also have the 228 F9 refractor. And I can swap. That's one of the advantages that I like about the Daystar filters, is that you can take them and put them on various telescopes. So if you've got a 2 or a 3 inch, you can put that filter on that. You know, if you've got a 6 or 7, 8 inch, you can put it on that. So it's very versatile. And when I was looking at the different filters, that was one of the big issues, you know, things that was determining me to buy the Daystar. This is a piggyback. I actually used both these at the same time. I had the 152 fitted with the Daystar, and I also had a 152 Lunt, and I would use both of them together. It was kind of an interesting setup. There you go. Of course, that's pretty heavy setup like that. You need a pretty substantial mount to handle that. Yeah, that's the 6-inch AP with the filter down there. And this is the 9-inch here. 228. All right, we'll just go through some. Okay, so over the last, most of these pictures were taken in Arizona, and I know when I first went out there, I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, we always think of heat and hot air rising off a, asphalt driveway or whatever, and so I was a little worried. But it wasn't a problem, and I'll kind of show you why. I've got a picture. But this picture made APOD. This was one of the largest sunspot groups of our last sunspot cycle. This was taken in October of 2014. This just goes to show you what you can do, how much magnification you can put on this thing. I mean, I've seen some professional images years ago, not today, but that weren't this good. It's amazing what we're able to do today.
Which scope did you get those?
Yeah, these were probably all pretty much taken with the 9-inch. Okay, I like to take pictures of things that are hard to get. This is the spicules here. So I'll tell you a little secret. When you're shooting spicules, set your hydrogen alpha shift about 0.7 to 0.8 angstroms to the blue side. Okay, and you'll find that your spicules will pop out at you. You want to do that. So that's only 5 arc seconds. Your spicules are a band only about 5 arc seconds high. So that's another thing that I want to stress here as we get into these that you want to do. A lot of detail on the sun is small. They don't look small here because, I mean, look at how much magnification I have on there, that the edge of the sun is, almost straight. So we're putting a lot of magnification on here. And that's really the secret, one of the secrets of getting. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a prominence. This is a loop prominence. A loop prominence, yeah. And this is a flare. Okay, this is a huge flare, which you can see where the magnetic lines are going down into a sunspot group. See, that's what's going on there. Same thing, different, and you can see the different times. You see how it's real bright up at the top of the prominence there. That was one of the things that really attracted me. So much of astronomy is like watching the grass grow, okay? And solar gave me the ability to, I mean, you could literally, over a few minutes, detect things that are moving, especially when you get into active filaments or active prominences. This stuff takes off in a matter of minutes. It can come and go, blow itself completely out. And that, to me, the type of personality I am, I like change, so I wanted to be able to see that kind of stuff. And like many clouds, these things are always changing. So you always have stuff to, present itself as a new photographic option.
What's surprising is only 5,000 degrees Kelvin
On the surface, yeah. Now the middle,
Times more in the middle.
yes, yeah, you're around 34 million. So yeah, here's the surface. Now, one of the big mistakes that I see when you're first starting out, because I did the same thing, so I'm going to tell you here, when you sharpen your photos, don't over sharpen them. we're all drawn to, man, I want to get this just really, really sharp. You know, we're dealing with a ball of gas here, and things aren't really sharp. Granted, it's, you know, 93 million miles away, but remember that it's a ball of gas. So keep it, don't over sharpen. If you over sharpen things, I think you just kind of take off a little bit of the. This is a very interesting thing. This is a program called Image J3D. You may have heard of that or seen it. This was that very large sunspot group, and in fact, what this does is show you the depth, okay, of that sunspot. In fact, you can even see the granulation in this photo here. So that was a very cool program.
That's your photo run through this software?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've been in several magazines. I think this was a magazine out of Europe. When we lived in Anthem, the local little had a little magazine, the little town that we lived in, and they put us on the cover one day. Valley of the Sun. It's what brings most of us here, but Pam Shivak says her husband Randy is definitely obsessed. and I'll have to agree with that. This is another magazine that we were in, Stargazers. This was an interesting shot that I did here. 2 weeks prior to the solar eclipse, when we were out in Arizona, I shot the sun going down over this mountain ridge. And of course, we can see the cactus and some buzzards, and we got a sunspot group over there. But I was prepping for the eclipse that was going to happen. It's another article done on me. And I've been in scientific white papers. We had several groups. I was in Discover magazine. Okay, I put together a little book on my own. I don't know what deal that was, but it was kind of neat. All right, 40 millimeter scopes. Let's see how we're doing here. Pros and cons. Easily transportable, that's a pro. These needs no electric for tuning, that's a pro. Easy to use, simple enough. And inexpensive. So, boy, that makes a great place to get started. Cons, prone to vibration, especially like on a day like today. Difficult to control the wavelength tuning. Doesn't have a real good way to control that. Even find it difficult to focus, and that's key at low magnifications. The power is so low that it's just, well, is that in focus or not? And many of the details on the sun are very small. They don't look small when I show them, and that's one of the secrets that I want to teach you, let you know about, is bring those things, get more magnification. Quality etalon can be, and some of the other optical components can vary. And this is one of the things I want to get at. All right, I could say, well, here I am right here. We're celebrating the Super Bowl over here. Well, you don't know that's me. You can't tell me from her, from anybody. There's me. There's my happy place, one of my happy places. That's what you want to do. Every one of these solar objects, the prominences, the filaments, the spicules, these are all different objects. You want to zoom in. You want to get that particular object. You don't want to just get, okay, yeah, that's the whole disk, okay. Yeah, you see that little thing there? That's a prominence. You want to get them up big.
4-string, good man.
Well, 4-string, yeah.
4-string.
4-string, yeah, the old time. So, how you can improve your images? First thing, as I said, increase your magnification either by using Barlow's or digital magnification. You should always use flats to remove Newton rings or other optical anomalies in your images. If you're shooting through, I use a fire capture. Boy, that has a great little program in there. You can, take away any Newton rings, any other dust bunnies or anything you have on your pictures. Boom, eliminates it. It's just wonderful. Make sure you're on band. Use your histogram. Use your histogram because, once again, when you're dealing with a small image, small details, it's really hard to tell when you're on band. Are you on band or not? And using your histogram is a good way to do that. Do not, I repeat, do not use a color camera. I know we're all purists, and I've done it myself, Oh yeah, boy, when I make this picture, it's going to be H-alpha red. It's going to look like H-alpha. Don't use a color camera when you're using monochromatic hydrogen alpha. Never, never. The reason being is because you're throwing away 2/3 of your image. There is no green, there is no blue, there is no violet, there is no yellow. There's only red. So all these other pixels that you're picking up there, they're just adding noise. So don't do that. No sense adding noise to your picture. So do not use a monochrome camera. Later on in workshop or in your processing program, you can have whatever color you want. You can make it whatever you want. And I'll show, well, as you've seen in my images, I don't make them red. You know why? Because the human eye isn't really sensitive to the red. So I kind of make it, a yellow, maybe an orange, okay? I try to push it a little that way, but don't make them really red because the human eye is not sensitive. We've evolved to really the green, yellow area is where we're most sensitive. So there's another little cue for you there. When you're making your pictures, I know you want to be purist and stuff, but don't make them real red. Use the Nyquist formula to figure out your aperture, your camera, your focal length configuration. Make sure your camera and everything is going to match what you have there in your focal length setup as far as your telescope. This here is a little program, you can find it online, set up for a 40 millimeter Coronado. So you just type in over here 40 millimeters, it comes up there, your F10, so you got 400 millimeters there. So your camera, I put in, this is what I use, the ASI 174 mono camera. So you put in that data here, and your frequency over there in nanometers, and so it's going to spit out over here your minimum focal length requirement over there. So you want to be between a 2 and a 2.5 a Barlow, okay, is what you want to be there for that. This is in fire capture. There's a little feature in there that has a quality graph. This is a fantastic quality graph. What I like to process is everything above 75%. Okay, so if you look at where the pointer is there, my gosh, you've got 50, 60, you probably got 60% of the images are above the 75% quality line. That is a phenomenal quality graph. I usually don't get that good, but that's why I took a picture of this one. It's like, that was fantastic. Now, if you're running 100 millimeter aperture, remember I keep saying aperture is king. You're running 100, you're going from 40 to 100. That's a big deal. That's all of a sudden now, I would recommend 100 millimeters. You can start getting white light granulation pictures with 100 millimeters. Once again, when we pull up the Nyquist formulas, you're going to see you're going to want to be running between a 2 and a 3 time Barlow on that. And the same thing applies. Use your flats. Yes, sir.
So I have a 90 millimeter card out.
Okay.
Yes or better. What do you mean by using this brand? I use it to map to get the best exposure.
Right. You can also tell, get it so that the histogram is at its darkest point and not spread out. Get it so that it's at its darkest point. That's when you're in the darkest part of the H alpha line. So,
I'm not following that.
yeah.
And that's, do you do that with the Etalon adjust? Or
Well, you're tuning. If you have tuning, okay, you have a tuner on your Coronado. Okay, you want to get that so that the image, so that the image on the graph is more to the left. If you're going to the right, it's getting brighter, right? Yeah. So keep it to the left. And then you'll see it. You'll see it move. As you go one way too far, it'll start going to the right. To the right.
So you're saying you're optimal when you're dimming it? That's another way.
Right. You want to get that histogram to go as far left before it starts coming back to the right again. Because as it's coming back to the right, you're getting out of the H alpha core. Okay?
but you still want to be above 0 black, right?
Oh, yeah. You still got to have light. Yeah. Use your flats to remove any artifacts. Okay, at 100 millimeters, your surface should look like cauliflower. See, now it's hard to tell that if you're running a 40 millimeter, but now you get up to 90 and 100 millimeters, you could start seeing that. It should look like cauliflower. If it doesn't look like that, if it looks more blotchy, you're not on band. You're not on band. It should be even, nice, even, should look like a head of cauliflower. Okay, so here we ran the same program. And once again, these are going to fall, mainly because I ran the same camera on there. But your F ratio is staying the same, okay, because we're running the same camera. I mean, things are getting bigger because our objective is bigger. But you can see you're running 2200 millimeter focals. So, that's pretty good, 2200 millimeter focus. So you're getting up there. So with the 152, I use a lot of Bader's products. I find the very good quality and very effective. I use the DERF 160 on the front of my scope. I mean, you could put your hand at prime focus image, stay there all day with it, not even warm. That's how good that ERF works. So you don't have to worry about it adding extra heat to your Etalon or anything if you're running rear-mounted Etalons. It's really, really nice. Really nice. The next thing when you get into this aperture now you're getting a lot of detail in your images. So now you really got to pick and choose your images that you want to take. And so what I've got is an SSM meter. It's called a solar scintillation meter. It's made by Aries company. They're based in France, I think it is. You can order them online. I'll talk more about this in a minute. That works really, really good.
What does that do?
Okay, what this does, you're able to go into your program, and I normally take 3,000 frames. Okay, 3,000 frames. what this will do is I can trigger my frames at, say, 1.5 arc seconds to 0.5 arc seconds. So now, if it goes above 1.5, it'll stop. It'll stop the camera. It won't even be taking images. And then if it goes back down, boom, the camera will start up. So now you're guaranteeing that you're taking pictures between 0.5 arc seconds and 1.5 arc seconds. So you're taking a window, now instead of all this other stuff that you're going to throw out anyhow, now you're just capturing this narrow band of really good stuff.
So that's a USB box that reports to fire capture?
No, this goes, I'm going to show this. This plugs in here. This is your sensor. So this gets mounted on the objective of your telescope, and you have another connector that runs from here into your computer, so that it goes into your program. Okay, so you're running fire capture.
So that's a sensor there on your
Yeah,
end of the cable?
yeah. This is a sensor here. This is a light sensor. Yeah, just put it by your objective.
Tape it up there.
You tape it up there, exactly. And now, this sensor is measuring the atmosphere about 1 mile high. Okay, so in other words, the jet stream, you could have all kind of problem going on in your jet streams. That's not going to measure it. This is only measuring the atmosphere at 1 mile up, because what they've found is, okay, that's close to your objective and whatever. This is going to cause you your most trouble.
Daytime only?
Yes,
Okay.
daytime only. So I have found that, once again, there's another tip for you. Worth the price of admission here. And we use our NightQuest formulas, just like we did on the other ones, to get. This was a beta ERF that I use here. Of course, I'm a machinist, so it's nice to have machine tools to do anything you want. But I made all that lens cell, and so yeah, this is the Aries Lab solar. It's called Solar Scintillation Monitor, SSM, and I highly recommend that. And here's what it's going to put out. It puts out this graph. And I ran this graph from 9:30 in the morning to about 10:15. And you can see right here's a half arc second line. So what you do, if you can set your program to kick off anytime, this is about 1.25 arc seconds right here. So you can set this thing to go off anywhere between a half arc second and 1.25. And it's only gonna, your camera's only gonna come on during those periods of time, which is really nice. Now, here's the other thing. If you set your SSM to run between a half arc second and 1.25 arc seconds, and your scene is at 2 to 4, your camera's never going to come on. So it depends where you live and knowing your scene condition. That's why I would recommend set this thing up one day. Don't even take any pictures. Just run your SSM and see how your skies are. And that's another thing that I get into is, once you start getting into the 6-inch and 9-inch aperture stuff, you got to start paying attention to cold fronts, low pressure areas, barometric pressures. I mean, I follow that stuff. Before I actually got interested in astronomy, I told you I was 14. Well, before that, I was interested in weather. So I followed weather a lot. And it's really helped me in astronomy. There's days now, the first clear day we get, everybody goes out and say, well, I'm going to image the sun today. I'm not going out. Because after that passage of the front, your atmosphere, your turbulence is incredible. What are you going to get? You're not going to get anything. And here's another tip I'll give you. if you post on social media, if you post to friends even, or if you post for or yourself, never post a bad picture. You know, people say, oh, that Randy Shivak guy, he takes great pictures. No, I've taken a lot of crappy pictures. But you know what? I don't post them. So nobody knows. And that's another little secret. So just keep those things in mind. Here's something that I really like that we talk about is this is the system that I use right here, the Bader TZ system. And if you note I'm screwing everything. The camera screws on to the filter. The filter screws on to the M68 system. And inside here, I'm going to take it apart and show you, is the Bader TZ system. Okay. So, and you may say, well, of course you know, everything being screwed on does a couple of things, right? No sag. You don't have anything sagging. Nothing's going to fall off. So you maintain optical concentricity, optical alignment. And those are all things that are really going to keep you on band, on wavelength. You know, as you go up in aperture, you're more sensitive. So if this thing is hanging down because you got a thumb screw that's not loose, well, you're automatically shifting your H alpha line off of H alpha. So I love the screw connections.
That's the filter there in the middle.
Well, this system right here is just a housing for the actual TZ system, which is the lens system right here. So you know, if you're mounting any type of a filter system, everybody's hanging it on here. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're putting a lot of stress on. This is your optical element here. Okay, and we can change this. This goes into my astrophysics. You take your focuser out here at the end off and screw this in. Once again, everything's screwed in. And they make Bader makes 3 of these systems. This is the TZ4. They make a TZ2 and a TZ3. Prior to this, what I had been using, what's everybody use? Yeah, not Barlow. What's it called? It's like a Barlow. PowerMates, yeah. We were all using PowerMates, right? Well, PowerMates, they work, but you know, at certain things, sometimes you get stray light coming into them. Sometimes you get some really goofy things coming into them. Okay, yeah. So, but this system, this TZ system, was designed for this filter. It was designed for the spectrum. What's that? The system. No, I think it runs around $400 or $500. Yeah.
But the filter's about $10,000.
Oh yeah, the filter's like 10 grand for this filter. This is a PE, the professional grade filter. And I had, you know, we all do this. I had an SE, which is standard edition. I had a standard edition. And they even tell you, Daystar will tell you, the standard edition isn't made for taking pictures. It's not. It's got some hot spots over here, you know, brighter spots. It's not uniform. The amount of uniform that this PE is made to is unbelievable. But this system here, everything goes together, and the outer section here is where all the weight is. Okay, nothing touches your optics here. So this goes into your telescope and it gets screwed in. Your camera is screwed in. This gets screwed in. Everything is screwed in and nothing is touching your optics. Really nice. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. Okay, and this is where high pressure. That's what you want. You want high pressure. You got low pressure sweeping up. See, I used to live in Ohio. I used to live in Ohio right by the Great Lakes, right by Cleveland, the Mistake on the Lake. And I was out of there. The only thing Cleveland, Ohio is known for is the Cuyahoga River burning. And in the early 1970s, the mafia having wars blowing up cars every other week. That's what they did in Cleveland. Oh, here's a good one. The solar cycle. This was solar cycle 24. And when this was taken, this was in September when they decided to do this, of 2014. And look at what they predicted on cycle 25 to be right around here. That's terrible. Now look where we're at over here already in cycle 25. So it just goes to show you, they don't really know. They don't know. All right. I think we covered a lot of questions. All right. Okay. Any questions? Anything anybody forgot to ask? All right. Yes.
So, on your the tuning with the histogram.
Okay.
So on the lunch scope, they give us two different.
On the lunch scope, you have a pressure tuner.
They tell us the single stack, you pressure tune to the lowest histogram.
Okay.
Then when you put the double stack, it's another lens that tilts, I think. It's got
Oh, really?
on the front. Then they tell us to tune with the second Evelyn to the highest histogram. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it actually does, and here why. I'm going to tell you something. You never want to tilt an Etalon.
Okay.
And the reason is because as soon as you tilt an Etalon, it automatically shifts everything to the violet end. Small amount, but it's going to shift it to the violet. It always does. No matter which way you tilt it, it's going to shift it to the violet. That's why you don't ever want to tilt your Etalons. I know they do it for tuning. It's cheap and easy, dirty way to do it, But having an oven, or another way to, or pressure tuning, that's really the way to go. Good way to go.
This is the least expensive telescope you've ever had.
The 60 inch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all. Been great.
I think he's got a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you mean by the term on band with regards to the histogram. Can you?
Oh, okay. On band. Okay. So you have your hydrogen alpha.
If anybody wants some free solar glasses, glasses?
Oh, nice.
Got free solar glasses over here if anybody's interested. Okay.
Are those from Southern Cross?
What?
Are those the Southern Cross?
Southern. No, those are from Daystar.
Oh, nice.
What was your question again?
I don't understand the term on band.
On band.
with
Oh,
regards to
okay.
the histogram.
Okay. The hydrogen alpha line is about 0.6 angstroms wide. It's so much thick. Okay. It's 0.6. So we call the wings either the right or the left, the blue side or the red side. You can shift it.
Understood.
Okay. So when I'm saying on band, you want to be in the core. Whatever your filter is, if it's 0.5 angstrom, 0.6, okay, it's probably a 0.7.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that the placement of your band is exactly on band. It's not shifted to the right or shifted to the left.
Center of the histogram?
Yes. Well, the center of the histogram. No, the darkest you want. So when you're, how do you tune it? You have pressure tuner? Oh, you got a wheel tilt. You're tilt tuning
This
it.
was an $800 impulse buy.
Yeah, take. So you're tilt tuning,
Is
right?
that what that is?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
tilt tuner. So what you watch your histogram. So your histogram will go so far dark, and then it'll start getting bright again. Okay, so you want to get it to where it's darkest.
So turn the wheel until
Turn-
it goes as far to the left as
Right.
you go before it starts to recover.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when you're on band. That's when you know you're on band.